say are true across the platforms. For instance, negative tendencies with theory communities that are ubiquitously found across all platforms, as well as in graduate school, as well as in conferences where graduate students and their professors go. Negative tendencies such as monolingualism and cultural imperialism. And when I say that, I don't mean it in this sort of post-colonial discourse way. I don't mean it in a way that Gayatri Spivak or Homi K. Baba or... No. I'm talking about it's kind of... I mean, they get at it somewhat in their work, but I'm talking more in just the high modern sensibility that James Scott is critiquing in Seeing Like a State, which is that everything can be reduced down to one approach, to one model, to reference to one standard, the belief in a standard that exists outside of our heads, that we can, through authority or expertise, have reference to and gain sort of a pseudo-proxy validity by. This is not just a product of the medium. It's not just a product of the schooling system. It is a product of monolingualism. But the schooling system is responsible for monolingualism because it's not trying to raise citizens of a world, it's trying to raise workers and managers of a nation. Or for international capital, it doesn't matter. And there's a big difference between theory communities and language learning communities. In theory communities, everyone's afraid to show their cards. Everyone doesn't want to put their dick on the table until they've been taking their enhancers long enough. Whereas in language learning circles, you just constantly fuck up. And you constantly make mistakes. Everyone helps you. Because everyone knows that language learning proficiency is a lifelong goal. It is a lifelong habit formation. And of course, there are people who rush to starting a YouTube about being a polymath. Oh, I speak 17 languages. Oh, I speak 5 languages, whatever. And they know how to have a basic conversation in these different languages. That's not the same thing as trying to go to the places that speak these languages, trying to get to know real human beings there, realizing that language is the biggest barrier and that you want to cross that barrier, that you want to be able to reach out to them in their own language because you feel bad that they have to keep coming to you in your language, right? So the theory scene online has this sort of the left, it exists out there. Or, objective knowledge, or the objective text, it exists out there. These fields of the life of the mind are treated as something removed, that we can develop specialties, we can specialize in the research of these fields so that we can then borrow the authority of dead thinkers or of these existing fields, so that our takes and our opinions have this sort of borrowed expertise to stand upon. Look, I mean, it's not always bad. It's not always a problem. But the reason I use this monolingualism example of a universal between all of the theory scenes online was not so much to go there, even though I do aim to build my lecture off of this metaphor to some degree. But it's also to say that there are factors that are unique to each platform about these scenes. And that could be the actual singularities of the real people involved, but it's also the medium itself. And the thing that I've been saying that is a spin-off of McLuhan, he says the medium is the messenger, and I've been saying, yes, and the medium makes the messenger. So did I mess up that? Because yeah, McLuhan says the medium is the message. Yes, but the medium also makes the messenger. Of course, it also makes the receiver. The Twitch audience is so much less patient than the YouTube audience. On YouTube, people can go back to the beginning and speed up to catch up on the thing. So there is kind of like this idea that like, I don't have to repeat everything I've said the whole time. If you really care enough, you'll go back yourself. For the creator on Twitch streaming though, people come in they come in where they come in and they can't go back. And if you don't acknowledge what somebody said within 10 seconds, they all think that you're legging out. Which is to say, you can't really get your point across, right? I don't think that these are the conditions that foster the kind of thinking that we need in order to develop a theory capable of showing us the primary tendencies of the attention economy that need to be either harnessed or counteracted. And I do think that that's kind of one of the goals going into this field. Okay. That's sort of a preliminary thing. The last thing I need to just say about this article, because most of this is not even in the article. The article is saying that a scene is cool if you just want people to have somewhere to belong and they're just listening to bands or whatever. But that's kind of a consumer demographic for some musicians as producers, where the real hardcore spirit, and this goes to underground hip-hop back in the day as well, was DIY, do it yourself, and the idea that everybody at the show has their own LP, EP, or like little bootleg thing that they're selling. Everyone's a producer in some way. Everyone's taking action in some way. This is not something that is normal nowadays, but it's something that underground theorists have to do. And so we're trying to break away from this idea that there are these influencer people and then there's these fan people, and move towards a model that says, no, we're all students and teachers, we're all trying to think, we're all trying to gather the concepts, and it's like everyone DIY in a sort of sense. You know, it's like sort of that spirit, sort of that vibe. Theory Underground is just my DIY experiment. You all have your own roles to play in the intellectual milieu if you stick around and you stay in the dialogue. Other intellectual milieus can sprout out of a scene. But what is an intellectual milieu? It is the context that births movements, that qualifies the kinds of people who lead and who take action.